Hey guys, welcome back to the ASAB After Show. This is Yadi.
And I'm Melly. And today we're going to be continuing our talk, or actually no, we're going to take it a little bit different today. And we're going to talk about the power of no, like we did on our podcast, where in our podcast we went into when no has no power. Basically, the power of no does not exist.
Like the limit does not exist. Did you guys catch that?
I know. So the power of no, we mentioned, does not exist, or we believe does not exist in relationships or in times when you're learning from your parents, or
when you're teaching a child.
Yeah, when you're getting disciplined, or even in friendships when, you know, sometimes you get asked to do certain things, or you get asked to attend certain places, and you have the power of saying yes or no. So in those situations, we mentioned in the podcast that we don't think they have any power. When you say no, it doesn't have power unless you support it with more information as to why you're saying no. Why are you coming up with this answer of no?
Yeah, we're not saying to always say yes, right?
Yeah, no.
We don't expect our friends to always say yes to us, and we don't expect our husbands to always agree with everything we say or do. And as well with our children, we don't expect our kids to always want to do what we want them to do. Yeah, or our parents, right? We don't expect them to always understand where we're coming from, but we do expect these people that we love and care for to give us more of an explanation as to why not.
Yeah.
Right?
Why are they giving us this answer of no?
Just because we're people who tend to explain why we don't want to do something or why we feel a certain way. So
yeah, we do it to kind of try to get our partner or our parents or whoever it may be to explain where we're coming from.
Yeah. And
why we see it as it should be a no.
Yeah, but when people just excuse me, not just any person, but when like your husband or your wife just kind of, you know, shoots you down with like, no, I don't want to do that. Well, why not, right? And if they can't say anything else, well, of course, that leaves you with
even more questions. Like,
yeah,
why?
It leaves you confused and just kind of puzzled, right? Like, well, why not? And when they kind of refuse to give you an explanation, and it's kind of, I don't think it's fair. No. It's not fair because you try to get them to understand your point of view. They should at least give you the same respect and letting you know why not, or why they don't want to do something, or why they don't think the same way.
Yeah, I think we kind of expect it. We expect it maybe because we do that, but I feel like we expect it as, yeah, like you said, as a form of respect, a form of like being like, I want you to understand my side, or, you know, just giving you a no and expecting us to follow through with it just because you say no, or our significant other says no. Like it just gives us, we need more. We need more of a reason to go with it.
Yeah, and also it's all about effort, right? When you put effort into a relationship, that means you want the relationship to work out, right? So you're not just gonna give someone just a plain answer and, you know, that's that. No, relationships take work, they take effort, and you can see that effort in, you know, the actions that, you know, these people are taking, and, you know, how you take action in that relationship and how you respond to that relationship. And you can see that person's effort in the way they respond to you. So a simple no is not, it does not suffice.
It doesn't, at least not to us.
Yeah.
Which I know there's probably other relationships where that's fine and you respect their no's, but for us, we just can't do it.
Yeah.
We feel like when our boyfriend or our husband tells us no, we kind of feel like we're not gonna follow you blindly just because you're telling us no. Like, we have to know just a little bit more to know where you're coming from. Like, convince me.
Yeah. Or
and maybe it's lack of trust, but
no, not even convince me, but more like, you know, I want to be able to respect your point of view. And in order for me to respect your point of view, I need to know where you're coming from. You know, like she said, like we're not just going to follow them blindly.
Yeah.
Right? Because that no, it can come from a place of, what is it? Like machismo.
Yeah, it could.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we're not used to that.
Yeah, it just doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when you're not that type of person. Like, I'm not the type of person to just be like, no, I don't want to do something. Yeah. Just like, no, because, you know, I feel uncomfortable or whatnot. We also came to the conclusion with at least our partners that the reason why they don't say no or with an explanation is because they don't know how to explain their no's, you know?
They never like dig deep into their souls and analyze why they're saying no, you know, and they don't feel like they need to or they want to. They just know they don't want to do it.
Yeah, who else has that problem?
I bet there's a lot of girls out there. Maybe even guys, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe there's girls that just, they feel entitled to their no's and that's that, right?
But you know, there are situations always where you should say no. And we mentioned also in the podcast kind of how when we're talking about the power of no, we're not saying that no doesn't have any power all the time. We're just saying in these certain situations, and specifically the ones we talked about in the podcast. But there are other situations where, you know, the power of no is obviously important and it has strong, how do you say it?
There is power in the word.
Yeah, no. It has strong power. Yeah. But and that would, one of those situations, I guess, would be when you're in any kind of relationship with, whether it's with family or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or friends, where
when you're like in an abusive relationship or, you know, a very unhealthy relationship.
It's very important to stand up for yourself in those cases, and you have to say no. And those are the times when we say, go ahead and say no, because that no has power. You have to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, and again, these are extreme situations, and we didn't cover that in our podcast because our podcast is, you know, it took a total different direction. So we're not talking about extreme situations in which, you know, your no doesn't count, because a no does count. But again, you know, we took that apart and we totally just
focused.
Yeah, we focused and we dissected a different aspect of, you know,
when
the word no.
Say no.
But like Melly was saying, there are situations in which no is very powerful, and these are, you know, in extreme situations when you're in an abusive relationship, an unhealthy one, or in less extreme situations like when you're like at a bar or at a club and like a dude is just very persistent and wants to like dance with you or whatnot. Of course, you know, a simple no should suffice. Or a little push like Melly does. She just kind of pushes them out of the way.
You know, sometimes they don't listen and you gotta show your no, and you just kind of like
show them no as if. Yeah, so there, of course, you know, you don't need to explain yourself. And oftentimes you don't, right? You don't want to be mean and be like, you ugly.
That might not even be the reason. Maybe there's more reasons, you know, why you don't want to do it.
Obviously, right?
But like, you know, there in those occasions, you should say no, and you should stand up for what you want.
Right. Also, when you're like overbooked, or when
I do that all the time. When you're overbooked and then somebody goes and asks you for a favor. And I'm always the kind that I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for you. Like, I would love to do that for you. And I want to do everything for everybody else when they ask me to do something. But I remember back when I was in school, I was so busy with school, and like I was working and school. And so when somebody else would ask me for a favor, it was like I had to plan ahead for it. And if it was last minute, it would be such a challenge to make it fit. And I would take on way too much and be super frustrated, you know. And I think that's one of the times when you need to learn to say no and stand up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that oftentimes we take up too much, and it's just our plate is like super full already. And because you love this person and you appreciate them, you don't want to say no, but you just kind of end up super overwhelmed, and it ends up backfiring, right? Whatever you said you would do doesn't even come out well.
Yeah.
And you kind of half-ass everything else too. So yeah, I think,
or you just don't sleep at all.
I know.
To try to like do everything, you know?
Yeah, that too. So
sometimes you just have to stand up and be like, you know what, I don't have time for it. Like, I would love to do that for you, but I just don't have the time. And it's hard. It's hard because I still have trouble saying that. And I always want to do everything for everybody. And I'm like, I'm not in school anymore. I should be able to do it, but it's not always possible, you know?
Yeah. And that happens a lot too with work.
At work, yeah. It can happen too.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, at work, you could be super busy, and there may be those occasions when, you know, maybe a coworker left and you have to take over their stuff. And then somebody else still trying to throw something else on top of you, and you're like, I'm already handling way too much. Like, there's no way I can take off. And I know that I have a challenge with this too. I always want to do everything, and I always want to be in charge. It's so hard for me to let go of control and let somebody else do it for me, just to help me out. Like, it's so hard for me to do that, but there's certain times when you just have way too much on your plate, and it could be at work, and you just need to learn how to say no sometimes. Yeah. For your own sanity.
Yeah. And if you're a person like if you're a person that is not very good at asking for help, then saying no, learning how to say no is probably the wisest thing that you could ever do, because once you say no, they won't come back and ask you again. But if you don't say no, you take it on, and then you just can't even step up and say, I need help, then you're gonna end up stressed out. And I'm telling you from experience, because I am someone who just, it's so hard for me to ask for help. Yeah. Because I feel like I can take it all on, right? Which I can't. And you know, when I don't say no, it happens where I get just so overwhelmed, and I can't even ask for help, and it's all bad.
So, and it all could have been prevented by her saying no.
By saying no, exactly. So yeah, that's definitely a situation in which you should just say no, like flat out no if you can't. So yeah, guys, save your no's for these situations. Save your no's
when it's important, when it's for your own sanity, when it's for good, you know. Don't just say no because you don't want to do things, and don't just say no because without giving an explanation, just because you don't want to look deep into yourself to find out why you don't want to do it. Because, you know, other people want to know why. They want to know so they can connect with you, so they can understand you.
Yeah, so we're not being like pushy by wanting an explanation out of our husbands and boyfriends. We're just, you know, we really want to understand where they're coming from.
And then maybe if I hear his version of why he doesn't want to do something, then I can contradict it and tell my version, and then maybe he'll want to.
Right.
That's our secret plan.
Yeah. Low key.
But if you want to go and listen to our podcast episode, we talked a lot about all the times that we've experienced where we didn't think the no had no power. And you know, but you also have to remember that you're not always going to say yes to things. You have to say no, but we say save your no's. Save your no's for those important moments, important times when something big's happening where you have to say no.
Yep. All right, guys, I think that's it for today. And like Melly said, go check out our podcast so you guys can understand a little bit more about what we're talking about. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Let us know when people tell you no, and when do you use no? Like, do you use no without an explanation? Are we just the only ones who request more?
Yeah. All right, guys. Well,
we'll catch you on the next one.
Bliss out.
Bliss out.